Well, hey guys, it's Thorzax here, and I wanted to catch up a little bit on my channel, and I also want to do a little bit of a VR, I guess, and I'm not going to mention any names. The guy knows who he is, and he asked me some pretty serious questions about match shooting, okay? Now, generally, there's two different categories when it comes to rifle, okay? When it comes to rifle shooting, you got match rifle, and then you have service rifle. Totally two different disciplines, okay? Because there's different rules. Service rifle has to meet certain criteria called out by the NRA for service rifle match guns. And they can only weigh so much. The triggers can only weigh so much. They can only have certain national match upgrades on it, and you know, that's it. But match rifle is a different story. Match rifle is, you know, you can select different triggers, you can use different slings, you can use different techniques and optics and all kinds of other stuff like that in order to, you know, shoot match rifle. So anyway, what I wanted to do today is I wanted to go ahead and I wanted to discuss slings. All right, now this right here, this is a match rifle sling. This is the type of sling that you're going to see that guys use for, you know, bolt action, you know, match rifle. And this one right here is already set up for me. I've used this extensively. It basically has two positions. Okay, right now it's set up in the sitting position. And this keeper right here, okay, hooks into the sling swivel that is on the rifle, okay? If you guys can see that, all right? You can see that there? See? And what that does is that clips in there, and so when you put the sling up on your arm and you roll it over, okay, it goes flat into the keeper. Now this is for sitting position where you're going to be down, you're leaned over a little bit, so you're going to need a little less length in the sling itself to hold the rifle up while you're shooting. Luckily, when I got this, it was already semi-broke in. A really good friend of mine, he shoots a lot of shoots, and you know, and he said he was looking through his boxes and stuff, and he found this, and he asked me if I wanted it, and I said sure. So anyway, like I said, the sling keeper only comes to that point right there on sitting, and if you want to go into the prone position, you put it all the way down there. You know, you put it past this little area here, and what that does is when you got the sling on your arm, you know, when you're laying down prone, you've got more length. You know, you got more length to it. All right. So there you go. Now, if you shoot match rifle, this is a good deal. If you shoot through, you know, like 4 position, 22, that sort of thing, you know, this is really cool. I mean, you can once you put it on your, you know, you put on your shooting jacket. You got a pulse, you know, pad that's on the inside to keep the pulse of your arm. And what you want to do is when you go down into the, you know, prone position, you want your hand to basically go to sleep. You don't want to have, you know, the blood surging through there. Okay. And so you want this fairly tight. Here's another thing too. Shooting gloves. There's a million of them. There's all kinds of different shooting gloves out there. There's ones that have little fingers and they're made out of neoprene, and they've got the, you know, they got the thumb cut out or whatever. You know, they got the fingerless ones. They've got all this stuff. And I'm going to tell you what, that is not going to make you shoot any better. It's not going to make you shoot any better. This one right here, you can get this from Creedmoor Sports. Creedmoor Sports, this is 18 bucks. At least it was 18 bucks when I bought it. And the main thing is with a shooting glove, is when you put the glove on, okay, and you're down there in position, all right? When the rifle is in, into the pad right there, all you're doing is your sling is going to hold it down into the pad. Okay, the sling coming over the back here, it's going to go around and then, up to your arm. That's going to hold it down into the pad. You want it really super tight in there, okay? And one of the worst things you can do when you're shooting prone is to grip the rifle. You do not want to grip the forearm of the rifle. You want to relax your hand, and you just want the sling to retain that in there, and you want it tight enough so it won't move. You make a good solid shooting position out of your body, your skeletal support, okay? Don't grip the forend. All right, so we covered the match rifle, sling, we covered the shooting glove. Now, I'm going to tell you something. This is all stuff based on my experience and the things that I've done through the years, shooting the circuit and that sort of thing. So what works for you works for you, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you. If it works for you and it gives you good scores and it's legal to do, fantastic. Here's another thing too. This is a Turner saddlery sling. Okay, I bought this brand new. And believe it or not, I think I bought this like 30 years ago. And even back then they were expensive. I think they were, $60, at least $60. What have I done with this? I've taken it off, set it in my closet, and I have not used it. It looks nice. It's all tough and everything like that. It's all thick and burly, and it's all like, badass looking. It's got nice sling keepers, that are really thick, Guys, I'm going to tell you something. You're probably going to shoot 5,000, 10,000 rounds before this thing breaks in because of the thickness of that leather. And if you've got the time and the money to put down range to break this sling in, then by all means go ahead and do it. But I found that it was a hassle to use because the sling keepers have to be broke in. You're constantly moving it up and down as far as you're sitting in your prone positions. The sling keepers themselves, what you have to do is you have to take these sling keepers off when you get the sling at first. Take the sling keepers off and then soak them in water. And you want to soak them in water overnight. And then what you do is you put them back on the sling, okay, and you let them dry out on the sling. And what happens is that they tighten up. And that's what you want. You want it nice and tight. So when you make the sling, okay, say for instance this area right here is going to go around my arm. This is what I hate about this thing. It's a pain in the ass. Alright, you're going to reach through there like that, okay? And this is going to go underneath, right? I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Alright, now these sling keepers, you got to pinch them up on your arm. Some guys turn them off to the side like that, and then they pinch them up on their arm, and then they pull the sling tight, so that the sling, but these sling keepers will start to slip on you as you're shooting prone, and they'll start moving down like this, and then guess what? This starts moving down your arm, and then your position starts moving, and then your steady platform, starts to shift, okay? And it's because this sling needs to be broke in, okay? And like I said, you gotta take this thing out and you've got to work out with it, and you got to put a bunch of rounds downrange in order to go ahead and break this in. And to me, I'm not going to spend that kind of money on match bullets and go out and attend all those matches just for the sole point of breaking in this sling. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to throw a whole bunch of matches down the drain because the sling is breaking in. Forget that. I didn't go in there. I didn't go to matches to break my equipment in. I went there to shoot to win. That's it, period. I mean, as far as getting there from here, I want to go the fastest possible route and not have to screw around with equipment and breaking it in and all this other crap, you know. I want to show you guys probably the most usable, easy sling that you can probably put on a rifle. And that's this one. It's that cotton web sling that you get, you know, for like 10, 15 bucks, you know, 20 bucks, whatever. And I'm going to tell you what, these are awesome. I love these slings. And I'll show you why. Let me go ahead and take it off the rifle here. The old K31 here, man, I'm telling you what, this rifle right here I'm thoroughly impressed with, believe me. This is a great rifle, a great rifle. It sure have went up in price though, holy crap. So anyway, these cotton web slings, these work really good because, first of all, you're not going to spend a bunch of money on ammunition to break it in. And another thing too, what I do with these is I go ahead and I take my loop, all right, and I don't put it on like that, okay, with a buckle, okay. What I do is I go ahead and I make the buckle itself cinch down, you know, on my arm when I go ahead and put it on my arm. And the way you do that is you can make a little small tourniquet this way with this. I'll show you. Just like that, okay? And what you do, when you reach through, okay, where the buckle is that when you tighten up on your sling, you set that buckle off to the side, to the outside of your arm. Damn it. Just like that. Okay? Now once you've got tension on that, that is not going to move. That is not going to move. You're going to be right in there. No matter how hard I pull on that or how much the rifle recoils, it's always going to stay in this, you know, stay in that same spot. Okay? Did you guys get that? Real simple, easy, cheap. You don't have to break it in, and it's going to work. You know, that's what you want. You don't want to be out, you know, you don't want to be out there screwing around and you know, buying a bunch of junk and having to break it in and figure out how it works and all that other crap. You know, that all that's going to do is cause you a lot of frustration. I've seen a lot of guys that get into match shooting, and the next thing you know, they're getting out of match shooting because it's too expensive, and the reason why is because they're spending all this money on this junk. Another thing on these little buckles right here for these, what some guys do is they enlarge that hole a little bit on the bottom end here, and then what they do is they, if this starts to slip on the sling itself, say like, you know, you shoot and it moves a little bit, you know, if they slip like that, like I said, you can enlarge that hole a little bit, and then you take a ball peen hammer and you hit the top of this, and you put this on an anvil or whatever, you hit this until that moves that down, and it'll pinch that cotton web more securely, and you won't have that problem. I don't have that problem with this one. like I said, I really like these slings. These are the ones to buy. Don't go out there and spend a whole bunch of money on a bunch of junk. You know, that's a lot of that stuff is just marketing. You know, because when you think about it, you know, you got the big names out there, and those guys there, you know, their whole thing is that they're trying to retire. Okay, and so they come up with their own sling, or they come up with their own book, or you know, whatever. You know, they basically want to, you know, retire. You know, and have their hobby, well, not hobby, but their sport pay them back. And granted, you know, some of them are good, some of them aren't so good. I mean, you just have to watch the different, you know, videos and stuff those guys put out. And you know, if they're out to get people started in match shooting, what they're going to do is they're going to show you the cheapest routes to get the best results. You know, and those are the guys I like to watch. Now, as you can see, that buckle is super tight. I don't have to deal with it. That is not going to come undone. So anyway, so I went over the glove, went over the match rifle sling. By the way, this is adjustable for, you know, your arm, the thickness of your arm. You want to make sure you get the buckle so where you can reach through it with the jacket on, okay? And you want it to, you know, tighten up as you go down in the position. We went through the cheap sling, which to me is the best. And unless you've got the money and you want to spend all that money on all those rounds going down range, avoid buying something like this. This right here, you know, you're going to spend an awful lot of time breaking this in and screwing around with it. And all you're doing is you're just shooting rounds down range that, you know, could have been accurate, could have been an aid to your marksmanship skills, you know, of getting to know if it wasn't for the sling. So why even entertain getting a sling like this unless it, you know, unless you can break it in a reasonable manner. So that's my take on it. I mean, if other results work for you, you've got a Tanner sling and you dearly love it, hey guys, that's fantastic, man. That's great. You know, I personally don't like them, and that's my opinion about it. So that's about it. That's about all I got. So anyway, that was a little VR that I went and put out. And the guy that asked me the question, he knows who he is. I don't have to bring him up. Anyway, this is Thorzak's. And oh, by the way, yesterday I went out and I went and shot the CZ. I put 100 rounds through it, shot 100 rounds of trap, you know, 4 sets of 25 rounds apiece. And I'm going to tell you what, that CZ, if you want a top quality gun, buy the CZ. If you want a top quality gun and, you know, you want to stay, you know, in a price range that's reasonable, at first, you know, I'm going to tell you what, the CZs are great guns. I'm telling you that right now. I took it out there and these other guys that have pintail, you know, Berettas and Brownings and they were all looking at it, you know, and I'll tell you what, the solidness of that gun, you know, when you shoot that gun, it's very solid. You can feel it in your jawbone when you get down there on the you know, on the stock and you're looking straight down, you know, the barrel. When you crank that round off, you can feel it in your head, you know, the solidness of that wood and the fitting, you know, to the action. It's great. I mean, it's fantastic. That's another thing too. When you're shooting shotgun, you know, don't grip the forend. You know, lay the forend down and rest your fingers there, but don't grip it. You know, if you grip the forend, you're going to have a tendency to try to over control, okay, and pull the gun over rather than swinging the gun. And I kind of experimented with that the other day, and you know, that works. Just hold the gun. Don't try to grip that forend. Here's another thing too I wanted to show you in the way of the glove, all right, is when you are going to shoot offhand, okay, and you shoot standing unsupported. In other words, no sling, no nothing. You got the sling pulled up tight on the gun, and you're going to shoot your offhand. I'm going to show you the best position. This was taught to me by an old rifle shooter. A lot of guys screw around and they got the rifle like this and they hold the gun like this. Bad idea, okay? That's a bad idea. And another thing too, don't hold the gun like this. You know, don't hold it like that. That's a bad idea, all right? I'll tell you how to shoot offhand. Take the gun, okay? Take your hand, reach out like you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna shake hands, right? And what you do is you just go ahead just like that, okay? Just like you're shaking hands with the rifle. You want to support the rifle in the crotch area of that glove. And you can pull it, you can push against the magazine and you can pull it into your shoulder and it gives you more steady of a release when you're shooting offhand at 200 yards. I'm telling you what, like I said, shake hands with a rifle. Reach out just like that. You can either do it this way or you can do it that way. I do it personally this way, but I just let it rest right there in the crotch, and then that way when I get up on the magazine well, or the magazine, I can push it into my shoulder, into that socket there, and boom, off it goes. It brings your elbow actually tighter to your body in your shooting jacket, and you get more stable, you know, position that way. Anyway, this is Thorzak's little hints and tips. I'll see you guys later. Oh, by the way, a little message for Manny out there. I got 2 tubs full of STSs. Now, you know, Manny, you're gonna have to go through them. I mean, they're not perfect. I mean, like I told you when I asked you if you wanted them, and before I went out there and got them, you know, do you mind if they've been shot a few times? Because I don't know how many times they've been shot. And you're gonna have to go through them, you know, as you're loading, as you're, you know, just take the round, you know, take the hull out, take a look at it before you know, put it in there. And I'll tell you, some of them are in really good shape. I mean, like brand new. So, whatever arrangements you want to make about, you know, getting them to you, it's fine with me. They're not taking up much room out in the garage the way they are. But I got 2 tubs full of them. So that's about 2,500 to 3,000 of them. So, you're all set, dude. All right. I'll see you guys in the next video.